Okay, hi everyone. Welcome, welcome. So we will go ahead and get started. This Lunch and Learn, as you all heard, is being recorded. So we ask that everyone remain muted. And please use the chat. Like we want this to be really interactive in the chat. So drop any questions or comments that you have there. We will also be sharing a short evaluation survey at the end and would appreciate everyone completing that as well. For those who I have not met, my name is Courtney Downs. I am with Kentucky Youth Advocates. We are a statewide children's policy advocacy nonprofit and also the backbone organization for the COSAIR for Kids Face It movement. And the Face It movement, which was founded and is funded by COSAIR for Kids, it launched in 2013 in response to the rise in child abuse related fatalities and has since grown to a network of nearly 200 partners across the state, all of whom are committed to ending child abuse and neglect in Kentucky. So we want to give a huge thank you to COSAIR for Kids for their ongoing support and for making this Lunch and Learn possible. I am very, very excited today to have the brilliant Dr. Nancy Weaver here with us. She is the founder of Support Over Silence LLC and then also the bystander intervention training of the same name. So if this is your introduction to Dr. Weaver, you are in for quite the treat. And I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to her now.
Thanks, Courtney. Good to see everybody. I see some familiar faces. I told Courtney when we were chatting in the waiting room that I'm just gonna keep her around for my moral boost. She's such an advocate for the work in Kentucky and just such a great hype woman for me. So I appreciate her having me around. And yes, please use the chat. I'm a professor by day, and I'm very accustomed to scanning the chat while I'm talking, and maybe even chewing gum and walking. So please keep the chat active and I'll kind of incorporate any questions that you have as we go. So as Courtney said, I'm a PhD behavioral scientist. I've been a professor for 20 plus years of public health. And my wheelhouse is in really understanding communities, community needs, designing approaches that will help those communities meet their needs, evaluating those approaches. And for the longest while, I just was really cushy in my professor job. Until I always give Shannon Moody credit. Until Shannon cold called me one day, literally on the phone, back when we used phones, and back when they were like this. And she says, "Hey, this stuff you're doing, because we wanna use it." And I was like, "Okay, great." And that has started just this rich and productive and warm hug collaboration that we've had for many years now. And so I always appreciate the opportunity to share what I've been thinking about lately. And what I've been thinking about lately is the nervous system and the brain. And as a behavioral scientist, this is sort of my part and parcel, right? I've been spending a lot of time thinking about how people make decisions about their health. And that includes how do people decide whether or not to spank their kids or shake their baby or engage in grooming behaviors or, a whole host of risk factors that we think about as we study child welfare. We think about the outcomes, the risk factors, the determinants, the different systems of influence that affect whether or not children are abused, and if so, how they are healing and can be healed and can provide and receive services, and the whole kind of constellation, the whole ecosystem of child welfare. And I think what has been missing for a long time is an understanding of the brain and an understanding of the brain in such a way that ordinary folks understand what influence our nervous system has on our behaviors. And those are parenting behaviors, teaching behaviors, coaching behaviors, even the behaviors of kids. And so I've been writing and thinking a lot about this lately. Let me minimize that. And hoping to share some of that with you today. So if this resonates with you, please follow along. We have a fledgling Instagram account, support.over.silence. And my team would love to have more followers. So there's my pitch for social media. What I'd like to talk about today, or how I'd like to talk about this, I'm going to tell you, we're going to start with a story, as most of my talks do. I'm going to unpack what that story means in terms of neurobiology and neuroscience. And don't worry, we won't be scary scientists, but we will be scientists. I want to reframe the question that we tend to ask when we think about misbehaving kids. Um, I want to think about how we use the science to begin to build communities that acknowledge the role of the nervous system in the brain. And I want to end with some comments on self-care, because I think the phrase self-care has been um, maybe mishandled a little bit or hasn't been particularly helpful in our thinking about our relationship with kids. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. If you want anything different, put it in the chat so I make sure to take a sidebar. But that's how we'll shape our talk for this morning. And I'll save a chunk of time at the end for questions. I want to tell you a story about a little girl. Her name is Caitlin. This is Caitlin. Actually, this is not Caitlin. This is a Canva image downloaded from the web. But this is Caitlin. And Caitlin loves to read. She's in the library all the time. When she goes with her mom and her dad and her grandmother, she begs for like the maximum number of books. She has a canvas tote that she puts her books in. This girl just she can't get enough. She's one of those voracious readers at a very early age. One day she's in school and her teacher says, "All right, class, get out your book reports." And Caitlin gets out her book report, and what her teacher observes is Caitlin losing it. We have a support over silence trainer. His name is Andy, and he often says she fell out. We don't use the word fell out in the Midwest. I'm in St. Louis, but apparently in Kentucky, y'all say she fell out. Anyway, so Caitlin fell out. She's throwing her pens across the table. She's upset. She's sassing back to her teacher. She's she's kind of off the rails, you know? She's yelling at people. She has to go to the water fountain. She's very appears to be very agitated. And I want you to think about Caitlin. I want you to think about a time when you have seen a child in this space of just being kind of like, quote, out of control, quote, misbehaving, mischievous. And I want you to think about what might be going on with that kid, with Caitlin and her teachers in this moment. And I'm going to frame our talk this morning around this dynamic. What's happening, how we understand it, what the science says, and how we can think about it a little differently to make Caitlin feel better and frankly to make ourselves as adults feel better. But think in your mind, hold in your mind a second grade classroom, you know, the desks that squeak, the chalkboard, the happy April spring showers posters around the room. I want you to hold in your mind this tension that you feel in Caitlin's body, in the teacher's body, in that moment. And you can even write in the chat, like, what do you feel in this moment? What's kind of when you remember those feelings when you were a kid, you know, how did you feel? You felt overwhelmed, as Lisa says. You feel a certain like when I feel this, I feel it like in my throat. I feel tightness. I feel my stomach. We have a sensory response to these kinds of things. Frustrated. Like, here's Caitlin. She loves to read. And yet, what happened when I asked her to take out this book report? So let's talk about human behavior. Let's talk about this behavior of Caitlin's, of like falling out, of throwing her stuff all over the room. What's happening there? And when we think about human behavior, our first instinct is to say, well, your brain drives your behavior. You know, if the child is raised by a good household and the child is given, you know, the right upbringing and the child knows right from wrong, the child won't throw her pencil case across the room. That just won't happen. Like, of course, something is going on, but this kid, her brain doesn't really, know what's going on right now. And we often think that that's what drives behavior. You know, what you know, the skills you have, your knowledge of what is culturally appropriate at that moment. However, However, that's always a transition. However, comma, what really drives behavior is the state of your brain. So it's not in the abstract that, our choices reflect our values. When we are calm and we are able to think clearly and engage the part of our brain that makes rational decisions, yeah, we make rational decisions in the left hand column. We're reasonable, we reflect, we can respond, we can learn. We're in a space where it's possible to think in that way. However, when we're not calm, we make behavior very differently. We make behavior from the part of our brain that is intended to alert us when threat is around the corner. We have a threat detection system in our brain. It's called the amygdala, and it lives like in the center of your brain, and its job is to like be alert. What's going on in my environment? Where are the predators? Where are the things that threaten my sense of safety? And then your brain stem's like, all right, I'm at the ready. I'm going to respond. I'm going to make your palms sweat. I'm going to make your heart beat faster. I'm going to get you ready to respond to those threats. And that prefrontal cortex is like, y'all let me know when you're done responding to this threat, and I'll get back online and I'll like help you with your rational decision making. And this isn't just kids, this is everyone. So let's think about the teacher. The teacher is like, what did she just do? Did she just throw her pencil case across the room? Well, I'm going to tell her who's boss around here. She knows better than to throw that pencil case across the room. So the teacher has felt threatened by the child. The child is fallen out. The teacher's amygdala is saying, oh my gosh, I got 28 kids in this classroom. What if they all do this? How am I going to get through our book report lesson if I got a kid who's on the floor, who's not usually on the floor? And the teacher is in this response that indicates that the teacher isn't in a calm place. So you've got this situation between the teacher, Caitlin, the classmates, the janitor walking down the hallway, the principal on the overhead. You have a whole school building where these nervous systems are engaging and working around each other and in this space where the other nervous systems live. And then you got Caitlin, and her nervous system is revved up. And nervous systems are funny like this, but nervous systems are contagious. The state of your nervous system is highly dependent upon the nervous systems of all the people around you. So that presents a bit of a pickle, right? We got Caitlin laying on the floor. We got the teacher who's like, oh, no, you didn't. We got the janitors like, what's going on in Mr. Smith's class? We got the principal walking by looking in the door. The teacher's getting agitated. Caitlin's getting agitated. And even talking about it right now, I'm like, girl, chill and take a breath. Because the space is a dysregulated space. I'm going to tell you a story about this. The story is by request from none other than our host, Courtney. She goes, tell the story about the airplane. It's like, okay, let me tell you a story about the airplane. I was on a flight. It was a Southwest flight. And, we'd all boarded. We sat down in our seats. I was on the aisle seat because even though I'm very short, you can't tell this, but I'm 5'1". I'm like short. But I like the aisle because I really don't like being boxed into the window. I got a little flight anxiety. I was on the aisle. And we'd taken off. We had just crossed 10,000 feet. The captain has turned off the seatbelt sign. You are free to move about the cabin. And we hear this baby wailing. You know those kids that like start crying and you think, oh, this is gonna pass, but it doesn't pass, and the kid's still crying, and you're like, oh, goodness golly, are we gonna have a whole flight out west with this child screaming? And it looked like that was gonna be the case. So me, I'm like, put my little cape on because I have gray hair now and I just feel like everybody's business is my business and I don't know where that comes from, but don't blame my mother. Actually, my mother is to blame, but I'll tell you that story another day. So I get up from my seat And I walk to the back of the bus, the back of the bus, the back of the plane. I'm strolling, 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 and I'm doing reconnaissance. I'm going to be like, what's going on? And I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm going to see what the situation looks like and see if I can do anything to help. I want them to know I'm an ally. So I go to the restroom and I peek, and here's what I see. I see a mom. She's holding this child, baby child, this little. She's holding the child and she's bouncing the kid up and down and she's patting the kid. And sorry if this is making you frantic, just me like mimicking this, but she's really upset. Quiet, quiet, be quiet. It's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Na 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 da da. She's singing, she's crying, she's bouncing, she's patting, she's like doing everything she can. She should be quiet. It's okay, it's okay. And the mom is just getting really, really, really worked up. The dad's right next to him and he's like got his phone. Sorry, my phone's right here. But he's like trying to show the baby like videos on the phone. Hey, look at the picture, look at the picture. And then they had a toddler and the toddler's like asleep against the window. So I pass this scenario. I pass this scene. I go to the restroom. I come out of the restroom. I'm walking back down. Kid's still crying. I put my hand on the mom's shoulder. And I don't usually touch people without, it is a bit of a risk. I put my hand on her shoulder. I look at her and I say, you are doing a great job. Don't let anybody on this plane worry you. We are all okay. Just take a deep breath. You've got this. That's all I said. And she just goes, thank you. And you could see her whole body just go, thank you. And I went back to my seat. And I got out my book. I do read a book, hard copy book. I get out my book and read my book. And in like literally 5 minutes, I'm like, wait, that baby is not crying anymore. So let this be your example of da-da-da-da, co-regulation. So in this school, where everybody's nervous system is in a variety of states of amped upness or not, they're sharing the sense of nervous systemness. This mom and this kid were sharing a sense of nervous system states. So if the kid is amped up and the mom is amped up, this kid gets signals. We have neuro pathways in our brain, mirror neurons in our brain that literally goes around and looks, how should we be feeling right now? And the kid, this little baby, built into her biology is scanning her environment. And her nervous system is saying to other nervous systems, hey, you over there, should we be excited right now? Should we be calm right now? I don't know. I'm a new baby. I don't know how we're supposed to be. Are we good? Are we worrying about something right now? And when this baby sensed the state of her mother's nervous system, the answer was very clear. Heck yeah, we should be worried about something right now because the mom was up here. So the kid was like, oh, we're going to be up there. We need to be excited about this. Let me alert my amygdala. Let me get my brainstem in on the picture so I can be ready too. So then you got two nervous systems that are at this excited state. And when I went by and said, yo, mom, you're cool. Don't worry about it. The mom relaxed. And then the baby, when he's like, whoa, what are we doing with the nervous systems? Oh, we're calm now. There's nothing to worry about. Ah, I got it. Okay. Then the baby calmed down because of neurobiology, because of neuroscience, because of the way our brains are built to detect and respond to threat. When we are little, the only way we know that we have to get ready to respond to threat is by sensing the nervous system of people around us. So we all live in this space of constantly figuring out, are we in this like window of tolerance? Are we chill? Are we connecting and growing? And are we feeling emotional but not overwhelmed? Are we engaged? Are we learning? Are we able to sit still in our seats in school and raise our hand? Or are we hyper aroused? Or are we kind of hypo aroused? Are we withdrawing? Are we leading to depression? Are we in a state of freeze? And we all fluctuate across these categories in any moment of any day. I mean, ask my husband. I mean, constantly. Sometimes I'm like, sure, babe, let's go out to eat. And then I'll be like, rah, 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 because something will have set me off or whatever. Now, these things are dependent. So look at the column to the right. Children who have healthy attachment tend to regulate themselves across these categories better than children who have not. And these are overgeneralizations, but these are the risk factors and the associative factors in the literature. But look at the second one, trauma history. So if you have a class, if you're a teacher and you have a classroom of kids, if you're an adoptive parent and you have children with you that have a trauma history, if you historically in your family have a large number of ACEs, these things have shaped your brain. Trauma causes your brain to myelinate different pathways so that you handle these threats better or differently or in a way that's protective. You know, the saddest examples are of children who have been in orphanages and they have cried and nobody has come. So their crying has not allowed them to meet their needs. So they myelinate the brain pathway of, well, crying does not equal getting my needs met. So why am I going to bother crying? And they move into a space of complete withdrawal. So our nervous system is built in this way. Taking from that then, let's sort of anchor this conversation on these couple of words. In addition to co-regulation, we have regulation, I'm feeling regulated, and we have dysregulation. And dysregulation is any time when the demands of a situation exceed our ability to manage those. So if we were to go back to Caitlin, we might, if we were a skilled educator, we might think, huh, I wonder what the demands of this situation are for her and how she is not feeling at this moment prepared or able to meet those demands. So we're going to tie behavior to nervous system state. At the end of this talk, if you were able to think to yourself, huh, when I see these kinds of behaviors from my kid, maybe it means that we need to support a nervous system that is currently dysregulated. Okay, I'm trying to plant that seed a little bit. Because what we do instead is we go, oh, Caitlin's such a brat. She's so entitled. She's being bad. She's one of those kids. She's going to be in detention later on. Because when we see that behavior, we misinterpret it as you're bad, you're defiant, you don't know better, you're a bad kid. Oh, yeah, I knew your mom, she was like that too. We attribute behavior to intention and character and how you were raised rather than what's going on in a nervous system. I'm going to say that a lot. And because of that, this is like a story. Are you getting it? Because of that, we see that behavior. If we attribute that behavior to you're being bad, you have a flawed character, you know, I need to teach you better, we will tend to punish that child. We will tend to punish Caitlin for throwing her pencil box across the room. We will tend to send her away, go to the principal's office. If she's at our kitchen table, go to your room. If she has an event coming up this weekend, we'll say, you can't go to soccer practice because until you show me that you know how to behave. So if we attribute, quote, bad behavior to a child having not learned a lesson, we often will think, well, to teach them a lesson, they have to be punished. But I'm here to tell you, because I've been studying this stuff for a long time, kids do not learn from punishment. Now, I have the word best in parentheses for a reason, Because some of you are going to come back and tell me, well, I was spanked as a kid. I mean, in my case, I grew up in Appalachia. I grew up in a small town in West Virginia, and there were stories all over the place of like, well, I had to go back out in the woods last night and pick myself a switch and bring it to my grandma because she swatted me with it. So if you didn't pick a big enough switch, then you had to go back out and get a bigger switch. And this isn't just Appalachia. This is all across, the being swatted with the chacleta or being swatted with a ruler in school. There are so many stories culturally of how adults have misinterpreted a child's behavior as bad or defiant, which has led to a whole range of punishments. And for a while that works. You think a kid who knows they're going to have to go pick their own swatch out in the Appalachian Hills is going to do better next time? Probably. However, it leads that child without the skills to do better next time. And here's the most important thing. If an adult has the practice of punishing a child when a child does wrong, a child's not going to come to that parent. What happened if that child's in a pickle and like does something that has put themselves at risk? Sent a nude picture to a kid in their math class, or succumbed to peer pressure and stole something out of the Target when they were shopping. You think that kid is going to bring that to their parent if they know their parent has a practice of punishing them for those things? Now, I'm not saying that boundaries aren't important and learning lessons is not important, but I will say that other methods are more effective. And if we lean into connection, that whole learning journey is going to go better. I wrote about this in a piece in The Conversation, and The Conversation is a journal that highlights work of academics and how we take science and we bring it into schools and libraries and all sorts of community spaces where in my case we're really working to bolster the science of child welfare. And I just kind of wrote it, didn't expect it to whatever. This thing has gone viral. It's been read over 100,000 times. It's been translated into languages. And it says, like, we need to shift the way we respond to kids. Because a lot of these like punishment things were based upon like Skinner's behaviorism and operant conditioning and shocking rats and rewarding rats and kids are not rats, people. Anyway, I'm sure you would chuckle if you were in real life. You would all say ha ha ha. Anyway, neither here nor there. So I hope I have sort of teed up your willingness to entertain maybe the idea that misbehavior in kids is actually a stress behavior in kids. And if I've teed that up and you're like, what's she gonna say next? Let's talk about a better question. So instead of saying, yo, Caitlin, why did you throw your pencil box across the second grade classroom? What were you thinking? Caitlin probably wasn't thinking, right? Because when our amygdala fires, and we don't know yet what's going on with Caitlin, and when her brainstem starts preparing her to battle this unknown threat, her prefrontal cortex is like checked out, right? It's like, y'all let me know when you're done battling this threat, and I'm going to come back and make some rational choices. Instead of thinking like, why is this kid behaving so badly? What if we said instead, what problem is their nervous system trying to solve? Because if we ask that question, the whole cycle of support looks different. Instead of Caitlin throwing her pencil box and her teacher saying, you're punished and here's your consequence, fill in the blank. A skilled teacher or parent, I know I don't of the, you know, people on the call here today. I don't know where you might be a parent or a foster provider or a coach or a teacher. So fill in your own role. I'm using teacher a lot today for some reason. But if we are able to shift our response as a mother, I'm a mom, let's go there. If I'm able to say, Caitlin, why did you throw your pencil box? You were bad. Here's your punishment. And I'm able to entertain, what is her nervous system trying to tell me? What does she need right now that I can help support so that we can settle down her nervous system and then learn and then connect and then teach a skill? Because I can tell you one thing is for sure. Nobody in a dysregulated state can learn, including me, including you, including Caitlin. So the conversations that we tend to have with dysregulated students who've fallen out, or our dysregulated 15-year-old who broke up with his girlfriend and is hiding in his room, these are nervous system states of dysregulation. Um, so my work has been to understand this, understand the idea that when you are at the grocery store and you see a mom womping up on her kid, or you see a kid bouldering down the cereal boxes, if we can think compassionately about that duo and fill in your own example, like when you come home and your 11-year-old is particularly cranky or irritable or sassy, you know something is beneath that behavior, but the only thing you're seeing is the behavior. So if we can build communities that, regardless of context, are able to see beneath the outward display of how people are behaving, it allows us to lend support. It allows us to approach our children with compassion. And if we can do that, it allows them to then learn and feel safe with us. And if your child feels safe with you, that's the biggest flex in all of parenting history. I put my foot down on that. It's a hill I will die on, as they say. So then how do we build these communities? Um, we are doing this through a program called Support Over Silence for Kids. And we teach bystanders how to actually do this, how to lean in when you see public struggles. We are also building a program called Ollie, which is the program for parents about like how do you actually parent in a way that keeps your kids as protected as they can be. And all of this relies on knowledge of what is happening when nervous systems kind of collide. And I want to point out this one kind of cycle. And here it's shown as a school, but think about this in your own family as well. I mean, I got a husband, I got 3 kids, I got I have 2 dogs running around. Anytime you have a system, a family system, a school system, a political system, there are ways we interact with each other. And I want to pause on this example of school trauma. We've been thinking about this a little bit as it relates to student-teacher connection, giving teachers skills to think about how these nervous systems connect. But if a child, as you see this sort of school picture, if a child feels that school is threatening, unsafe, uncomfortable in whatever way, they are going to show up to school ready to protect themselves. Their amygdala is already going to be firing. And if it's a student with a history of problem in schools, learning disability, neurodivergent, school is likely not a particularly safe feeling space for them. They're going to show up ready, in high alert. A kid who's being bullied, a kid who has mental health struggles, physical health struggles, they're going to show up to this school system ready. They're going to have their armor on. They're going to be ready. Their amygdala's firing. They're in their brainstem. They're not learning. They're surviving through the day. And you're going to see in whatever system the child's behavior reflect that. They might sleep. They might leave class. They'll get to that place of hyper arousal or hypo arousal. They'll perhaps become dysregulated. And the outward indicators of that are all these misbehavior looking things. And the teacher is going to say, what's going on with this misbehavior? And the teacher, if not skilled, will react and will say, ugh, I mean, I do the same thing. When I was a kid, I was the worst babysitter ever because I was so upset myself when the kids were upset and I didn't know how to handle all of that. I'm like, I mean, I was fun, sure, but like, oh my gosh, put me in a pickle, I would have no idea how to deal with that. So if teachers don't understand, if parents don't understand what to do when you have these dysregulated nervous systems, they themselves will become dysregulated. And then we're like the mom and the kid on the plane. We got dysregulated kids, we got dysregulated adults. Nobody wants to come to work, nobody wants to be part of that system. The house gets toxic. There's no joy in your household because everybody is managing these states of dysregulation. And that's why the adults in the room, and I assume that's all crop of y'all, the adults in the room must then really lean into what it means to attend to your own nervous system first. And so I want to move to some thoughts here in this last segment of our time together and talk about what self-care can look like. And I think to answer that question, I have to kind of say like when did this become a thing? Like why are we having these conversations now about the need for self-care? We didn't have these conversations way back because we were cared for. We understood the village idea. We understood sort of supportive systems. And so as I'm thinking about self-care, I'm like, okay, what's the opposite of self-care? I was like, I wrote in my notes, I'm like, is it self-sabotage? Like either we're caring for ourselves or we're not. And sometimes parents have a false idea that caring for yourself is like secondary. Is like, well, I'll take a bubble bath as soon as my kids are out of the house. Or I'm not going to eat well today because I want my children to enjoy dinner first. And we reserve self-care for this extra thing that is leisurely. And I despise that notion of self-care. Self-care, okay, leisure's lovely. A massage is lovely. Bubble baths are lovely. But I'd like us to call that leisure. I'd like us to call self-care the idea of taking care of our own nervous system first. Because let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if we are able to do that, then just like the mom on the plane, self-care becomes I can own my own emotions. I have the skills to regulate myself when I am upset. I have the skills to be present when there is chaos and stress. And I know deep in my bones that if I am able to get to that space, I will directly, not indirectly, not by accident, not serendipitously, but directly affect the nervous system state of my child. The very best thing that you can do as a parent to shape your child's behavior day in and day out is to provide for your child a calm, regulated nervous system with which they can regulate. I said that very well. I should have recorded that. Oh, we are recording. Thank you. So it is not a daggone luxury to be calm, to find resources to manage your anxiety, stress, dysregulation, to heal from your own trauma. That's why those things are so important because the neurobiology links us to our children in an inseparable way. And we have framed that in our program Ollie, which is why I'm showing you our little Ollie picture in this particular talk. Because owning your emotions allows your kid to join you in a space of calm. Leading with connection is preventative. Leading with curiosity is preventative. Establishing boundaries that are firm and loving and creating spaces where your family is connected to other families and people that are trusting spaces for your children. This is a prevention framework based upon science. Now, how do you do that? I got three ideas for you. Y'all are gonna laugh at me, but it's the pause. It's the pause and breathe. I just did it. I just paused and breathed even when I said it. Now, a long time ago, we used to talk about breath, and we used to think it was like hokey pokey and woo woo, and only the earthy, crunchy people talked about breath and all of that. Now it is gaining mainstream attention. Why? Because when you breathe, your breath is the best way to calm down your nervous system through what is the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body, but the vagus nerve is responsible for that parasympathetic nervous system reset. So breathing is the quickest way to tell your brain, yo, don't worry, there's no threat. And then your amygdala goes, oh, okay, I'm going to chill. And your brainstem goes, oh, good, because I was in high alert. And your prefrontal cortex goes, okay, so I can think again. Yeah. The breath is the quickest way to do that. I'm not kidding you. And and because this is a lunch and learn and you're not on camera, you can practice this. You can put the tip of your tongue behind the top teeth. You can make sure your tongue is resting at the roof of your mouth. In fact, if you don't know this, your tongue should always be resting in the roof of your mouth. You should always inhale through your nose. That's why all this mouth taping has become really vogue because we want people to have the tongue resting in the roof of their mouth. We want them to nose breathe because that again helps reset the nervous system. The pause is important because, like, if your kid falls out and is screaming, your initial reaction of anger is not a thinking reaction, right? It's an upset reaction. So your child falls out, your initial reaction is to get angry, and then you realize, huh, well, I think that I could make a different choice. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to pause. I'm going to have a more thoughtful response. But if you react right away, it's not going to be your thinking brain's reaction. So you got to pause long enough to set aside that amygdala and that brainstem. So your thinking brain can be like, yo, mom, you really don't want to smack your kid right now. And I love that notion of pausing and thinking about how you want to respond. We have a lot of folks joining today who work with kids and families in different settings, schools, medical, clinical, home visitors. Does this resonate with you? Yes, Courtney, great question. So after you're able to pause and breathe, you can think like, and also. There's this lovely phrase that comes from dialectical behavioral therapy, which is like this concept of two things being true at the same time. Yes, what my daughter did was unacceptable. She should not have thrown the pencil box. And also, I can be curious about why she did and not resort to a reactive punishment. And also, like I met a friend one time and she's like, yeah, we were on a family vacation to, I think it was like a state park. And on the second day, my kid did something really bad. And I just told him we couldn't do any more of the state park events the whole week because he was bad. And I was thinking to myself, yes, he did something that was unacceptable. And also, can we not understand as well that these are children with underdeveloped brains who are responding to what their nervous system needs are at the moment? So, so we can think multiple things at once, and it's hard to sort of figure all that out. Most importantly, we have to get curious. We have to think what else could be going on. right? So if we go back to our story, and y'all can fill the chat if you want, but let's think. Can I take a minute? I'm sitting at my kitchen table and my daughter, who really loves to read, just threw her milk and cookies across the table. I mean, I don't make milk and cookies for my kids, but maybe some of y'all do. Threw her stuff across the table. Or they're in my clinic. I'm a pediatrician and she's in my clinic and she just threw her backpack across the room. Or she's at school and she threw her, whatever, right? We see this happen. Number one, can I take a minute? Can I take a beat to breathe and pause? How am I really feeling about this? Because under our reactions often is like fear. Like, I don't feel capable of handling this as an adult. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I mean, I will raise my hand as high as any of you because I remember when my middle kid is a soccer player and we used to go to these big soccer tournaments and stuff, and I would always be so nervous after the game because I didn't know how to handle loss or even winning for that matter. Like the big emotions of winning or losing. I as a mom was unprepared for how to deal with those. I didn't understand any of this brain stuff. So, but now I've come to learn like what's underneath that. Like I feel unequipped. I feel like I don't have the skills. I don't know what to say. How do I even address this with Caitlin? Why might she have reacted this way? And in Ollie, we really, really unpack this. Melissa, yes, maybe she was feeling a perfectionist mindset and didn't feel ready to share her book report, right? Her teacher could say, turn in that book report, and maybe she loves this book so much. She wasn't ready. Do you think she has the skills to say, Mrs. Hudson, I don't feel ready to turn in my book report yet. I would like to work on it for a few more minutes because I want to get it just right. Do you think Caitlin can say that? I will tell you, no, no, Caitlin cannot say that. Caitlin cannot also say, I was reading this book that last night with my dad, and my dad got really angry at me and he told me to go away. And so now when I think about this book, it makes me really sad. Do you think Caitlin can say that? No, no, she can't. Do you think she can say, I'm really hungry right now. We didn't have food in my house this morning. I didn't have any breakfast, and it's hard for me to think about a book report when I'm really hungry. Do you think she can say that? No, no, she can't. All of these things that you will come up with. Maybe she had a fight with her best friend. Maybe she doesn't like the way the tag feels on the back of her shirt. Maybe. And so here we are in this moment of saying to ourselves, this isn't a bad kid. This is a kid having a hard time. Those aren't my words. Other people have said that. This is a kid that's having a hard time. This isn't a bad kid. So we don't need to punish this kid. We need to support this kid. How can we support this kid? Maybe she's dyslexic. Maybe she loves reading the books, but maybe there's something about the worksheet that's difficult. Maybe she doesn't like her pen. I mean, the list could go on and on. If we are willing to get curious about the very, very long list of reasons that could have made it necessary for her to throw her pencils on the ground. I know that's stated a little firmly, but you get my point. Her nervous system was looking for something. Now, let me ask you this. If you're an unskilled teacher, you know what you're going to say? Caitlin, if you don't turn in that book report, you are going to stay in from recess. And then Caitlin, who's thinking to herself, the only thing that's going to reset my nervous system is getting outside for a few minutes. She'll say that subconsciously, has been taken away from me. So not only have I been punished for not doing something that I cannot do right now, but the one thing that helps me reset my nervous system and give me a chance of being able to do that dang book report is being taken away from me. This leads Caitlin to shame and embarrassment and guilt. And she starts feeling yucky about herself because her nervous system isn't as developed to manage this in the way the adults might want her to manage this. You get the picture? I'm saying it very firmly because I want you to sort of see the picture here. Colleen, if other kiddos had already presented theirs, maybe she jumped into comparing her report to her peers and she felt like she wasn't good enough. there are lots of reasons that she could have felt threatened in that moment. I mean, it's back to when they were toddlers. You cut my sandwich in squares and I wanted it in triangles. I wanted the blue cup. You gave me the green cup. No big deal for us, but for them, it feels threatening. It feels unsafe. So I'm leaving you with this thought that first off, the most powerful thing you can do to help shape a child's behavior is to give them the gift of a calm nervous system yourself. And that's not luxury and it's not self-care. It is an essential part of parenting. And because Face It and Kozair and Courtney and her whole team, we focus on child welfare. The biggest way to protect your kid from violence from others, perhaps violence from yourself, is to shape the nervous system texture of your home and of your school and of your clinic. And that will go a long way to helping these kids grow into skilled, regulated adults ready to be in a flow state and learn and thrive, and will give them huge opportunities for protection and connection the rest of their lives. So I thank you for your attention. I put the QR code for our mailing list on the website. So we would love to have you join us. If you just want to take your phone, you can take a picture on the slide. Um, and we would love to have you follow along. Also, my team is like, Nancy, if you don't get us more Instagram followers, you can't come home. I'm just playing, but please go to support.over.silence. You can follow us on Instagram. We have a podcast called Out Here with Kids. So I just jabber about this stuff in a bunch of different ways. So please do follow along. And I'm around for questions. So if you want to come off mute and ask questions, that's great. I will stop sharing. And if you want to put questions in the chat, I can take a peek at that.
I have a question, if it's okay,
Of
Courtney and
course.
Dr. Okay.
Hi, Melissa.
Could you speak to the importance of the repair? So this is a lot about prevention, right? So when we do the thing, that say the thing,
The
explode
thing.
away, and then we are immediately like, I was not regulated. Let's get that together. I can see by what I've done here, the face of the kid, the whatever. Whoa. Could you talk a bit about that?
Yeah. We used to be in the space where repair showed our kids that we were weak or that we weren't serious. But I love your suggestion here. Repair is essential. Number one, it helps our kids see that we make mistakes in regulating and that we care for them so much that we are willing to repair and we are really willing to circle back. It allows your kids then to take more risk. Like if your kid doesn't think there's a way to repair, they get more tentative because they're like, well, I can't mess up because there's no way to fix it if I do. So by modeling, Caitlin, when you threw your pencils on the floor, I got really upset. And I'm sorry for that. I didn't handle my emotions very well about that. I wish I had been more patient with you at the time. And Caitlin can say very clearly, apology accepted. And then, so repair is about repairing and making amends. So it's a two-part thing. I'm sorry, and what can I do to help us rebuild the connection that I broke with you? So I'm really sorry about that. I accept your apology. Could we go on a walk? Do you want to play with the dog outside in the backyard together? The repair is about rebuilding a connection that the disengagement has caused. And it's a critical part. And it shouldn't be heavy. I mean, I love to collaborate with people and be around people who I know will accept my apology when I mess up. That's a gift we can give each other. I like, hey, team, I made a bad decision here. That wasn't great. I apologize for that. I'd like to look at ways to kind of to do this. And yes, you're modeling that behavior for kids. So the kids are like, "Oh, we can repair? Well, then let's go." If I love you enough and you love me enough and this relationship is worth it and this is unconditional, no matter how much I mess up, it is unconditional. Your love is not conditioned on me not messing up because you've given me a way back through repair and reconnection. Yeah, a pause and repair. Yes, and hands. Great idea, Brandy. Okay, Patrice has a very nice hand up in Zoom world. Patrice, questions.
Hi.
Hi.
So I am a millennial who is relearning all of this because I grew up in the time was because I said so. Don't give me any back talk. And if you do, I'm gonna smack you. That's just how I grew up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, my question to you is, when it comes to working with youth, I don't have any children, but I'm an aunt and I work in the school system. So, when working with kids where there's clearly like some nervous system disruption, irregulation, how can I regulate my nervous system, not only in the moment, but also like after that moment happens? So, when I come back the next day, it's not like a carryover or like a lasting impression of that negative experience with the child.
And with the kid too, and you're not assigning that kid bad kid energy. I think I don't have a great answer for this, to be honest with you. School systems are different, groups are different, but here's some guideposts. When you feel as an adult in a space that you cannot be a calm nervous system for the kid, it's ideal and often not feasible, but to remove yourself from the space temporarily. So even if it's you go home that night, you come back the next morning. And people have mantras like these aren't bad kids, these are kids having a hard time. I think the reattribution of misbehavior to stress behavior helps me not to think personally that this kid has been attacking of me. And I double down on connection. So if there's little Johnny who's done a thing in a classroom, the next day I'm going to go straight to Johnny. Johnny, I was going through my stickers and I found this one that is a basketball and I knew you would love this one. Give a sticker to Johnny. Johnny Johnny will do better when he has a person by him that he knows his nervous system can rely on. And the more you connect and invest hard into Johnny, Johnny will over time, not the next day, but over time, you'll get better about understanding what his behaviors mean. He'll get better at trusting you to explore those behaviors. And over time, when that relationship is safe, you will see Johnny rest into his space of learning. Now, people come at me like, I got 28 kids in a classroom and I can't leave the room. I understand that. That's why I say it's not ideal. But that's sort of the mindset that I bring to that sort of challenge. The little box is shifted around so I can't see you anymore. But I hope that answered your questions. Other questions, other comments? I'm looking at the chat.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Hey, I'm Tina. I'm from
Hi.
Louisville. Hey,
Hello. How are you, Tia Sparks?
I'm
Starks?
pretty good. Just the comment that you were saying, as a FRC, as a success coach, as a behavior, I've kind of done a little bit of everything in the school.
Yes.
But your comment with the, it's 28, it's usually like 28 to 30 of kids versus us. A lot of the times I would tell our teachers, you can call for assistance and we can come in and watch your class while you take that student out and have a conversation, because I always want our kids to know that you can have a conversation with an adult. If someone hurts your feelings, then
Oh,
you need to
yeah.
let them know.
Yes.
And I'm also a millennial where I came from that era of you don't have feelings. But
Oh, right.
but I really
Such a good
am
point.
trying to equip our kids with knowing that they do have feelings and their feelings are valid.
I love that.
So
I love that. And the millennials, I mean, y'all are doing a great job because it's not that the feelings are everything, but anger is a useful emotion. You know,
yeah.
it tells us where our boundaries are. So we want to acknowledge that there's anger and give the child tools for how to manage
Mhm.
that because eventually you do want Caitlin to say, I really want my book report to be perfect and I wasn't ready to give it to you yet. You want her to develop that vocabulary. And so
Right.
you're exactly right. It's not go out in the hall, I got to talk to you, but it's,
Right.
hey, Johnny, let's take a walk. So you come in as support. You and
Hmm.
Johnny, you walk down, you maybe you go outside, you get some fresh air. You take 5 minutes with Johnny, and Johnny goes, this person cares about me. This is a safe person. I don't have to get revved up in order to have this conversation with my teacher.
Right.
So I think all that stuff is just because sending a kid out in the hallway can look two ways. It can look like I'm sending you away and I'm punishing you, or it could look like I want to have a special moment with you and just kind of help explore what was going on here.
Right. And then I just think about like as a student, I was that kid that never wanted to be called on. I didn't really want to have relationships with adults, although I did want to have relationships with adults,
Right, right, right. But they
but
didn't, but they weren't safe to you.
but they
Like they
weren't
didn't.
safe. Right.
Yes, yeah.
But you figure you are going to be in this, teacher's room all year long. You have to have some sort of positive relationship with your teacher. And that right there is as
Yeah.
safe as you can get because it's something that's between you two.
Uh,
And for
I
my
love
kids, I
that.
always tell them that this is a conversation between you and I. So if you tell your friends about what we talked about, then, then that lets me know that, you did this. I didn't go and tell, everybody what we
Yeah,
said, but that kind of puts it back on them as, okay,
yeah.
well, she's trusting me to have this conversation.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Because then sorry if there are other questions, let me just say one more thing. If you think about people who don't have your child's best interest at heart, the groomers, the explorers, the traffickers, they're going to say the same thing. They're going to say, you can trust me. Don't tell your parents. Like, so it's very confusing to a young child to parse that out. And they have to have those emotions and that nervous system ability to use language, to be able to see where the anger is coming from, to feel their intuition, understand consent. And we have to start that young, but
Hmm.
over time they develop skills and they go to the people who have proven to be trustworthy for, and their nervous system knows I'm around a trusted person. Yeah, so I
Right.
love that. Yay, I applaud.
Good job. Good job.
All right. Other questions, comments? I know we're up against 12 o'clock, so lunch hour is technically over. So thank you for joining us if you have to hop off, and I'm around if you have other questions. Unless Courtney has something to say, sorry.
No, you're good. I was gonna say you all can hang out for a while if you want to, but I just wanted to, thank everybody for joining, but also thank you so much for being here, for your energy, for your brilliance, for all of it. I mean, this is just absolutely fantastic. So thank you.
Lovely. Well, and thank you, Face It and Courtney and Cozair for Kids, and all of you for your work.